Happy Thanksgiving from all of us here at Moral Side of the News. We're glad you're alongside this week. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as always, is a distinguished panel on this week's program. Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, St. Peter's United Church of Christ and MOLO Village CDC. Reverend Sally McClain, Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks, the Temple. And Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville. Our first topic today on this program: Donald Trump wants back in the White House. The former president this week announced he will run for the office in 2024, while his former vice president, Mike Pence, says, quote, there will be better options, end of quote. Let's hear from you, our panel. Let's hear what you have to say about Donald Trump running for the White House in 2024.
I personally, on the moral side of this issue, I think the man should be in jail for inciting an insurrection, a deadly insurrection on the Capitol, January 6th. And it is just amazing to me how many people still support him. He and his handpicked people did not do as well as we had feared in the midterm elections, but I don't understand the moral issues in this past president's life are just, I don't have to enumerate them. I just don't understand why some Americans, not all Americans, not all Republicans, but those who do follow him, who support his prejudice, never mind. That's a start. Somebody else pick up. Come on, Tony.
All right. Well, again, he, as an American citizen, et cetera, he has the right to run, and that's fine. But when I heard this, I kept saying, no, he will not do it. But then he did. He has the right to do, yes. And if he's running on his history, I don't know. We'll see. You mentioned his followers, though, Gay, but I keep hearing more and more every day now that his followers are being, just sliced off left and right. He's lost a couple of billionaire benefactors the last couple of days. Other Republicans, as you mentioned, Mr. Pence and whatever, are saying that we really need him anymore because of his showing in the midterm elections. But I was taken back by, I didn't watch the whole thing. I just caught the newscast of the, in fact, I understand most of the major networks did not carry his little statement that he was going to rejoin the fold, as it were, in elections. But anyway, was it First Fact? It's a fact-checking organization. His first major speech of the new attempt at the White House, they said of the 20 different aspects, or I would say issues that he broached in that little talk, all 20 were either, as they said, either half-truths or outright falsehoods. There was simply no truth to what he was saying about the present administration, what he said about his past administration. So again, here we go again. That's my comment. It's more of the same. And I got kind of sick of it the last time around. I thought perhaps he tried his best, but his best was obviously not good enough on many levels. And like yourself, I would say, I think he does more damage to the GOP by running than anyone else. And the fellow down in Florida and all this, DeSantis and these folks, I think they would want to see him go away, but it's going to be difficult he's going to have to lose a lot of support before that, I think. So that's my contribution to begin with.
It's taken me a long time to try and wrap my head around why people support him. But I have come to the conclusion that there are people for whom the American dream can be seen, but it's far away. I mean, it's like they almost can touch it, but they can't really get there. And that's, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they're very disenfranchised. So he speaks to that disenfranchised population. And it's kind of, and when he talks about draining the swamp, if you think and I think in their minds that so many people think that lawyers are controlling the United States of America. They're all lawyers in DC, and they're not a fan of lawyers. So his small contributors, these people that give anywhere from $5 to $50, are the ones who are so adamant that he needs to be in office because he's going to do what he says he will do and take care of that issue. Then I think there's another faction that's even a little more disturbing to me, and they're people with college educations who have been able to be a part of the American story, and they want 1950. I don't know if you face that in your churches and your congregations,
Yeah.
but there was always that desire to go back to 1950. So we didn't have to deal with gay rights. We didn't have to deal with racial issues. We didn't have to deal with speech that was correct. We didn't have to do that. And so there's that group of people. And it's just taken me a long time to understand how this American dream is not quite there for some people. And he represents that faction of the people.
You know, there's no question that the American dream is not there for many, many citizens in our nation. But how he represents it, I mean, first of all, he inherited his huge wealth. And then what he did with it then is another story. But I can't remember one of the newscasters who said, you know, the chickens are voting for Colonel Sanders. Why Americans think that he is going to care about, you know, your average American or your disenfranchised I mean, he makes fun of people who are disenfranchised. He gives huge tax cuts for the wealthy. I mean, are you telling me that a family that can barely afford to put food on the table and a roof over their heads, that they want there to be tax cuts for the super wealthy in case they ever become super wealthy? I do not understand that.
Well, I'm going to jump in here because I think that we continue to try to figure Donald Trump out. And I think that he is mentally unstable. And but I think that instability speaks to us as a population, that we get permission to be unstable along with him, and which is a scary thought all by itself.
Yeah.
But for me, I refuse to spend too much more energy on Donald Trump. And I think that if we paid less attention to him, then he might just go away. He thrives on the attention that he receives from media and whoever else attends his rallies. And I think if we as a population just ignored him, I think that would be too much for him to handle, and he would just go away. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but you know, that's just like a child that throws a tantrum, right? You get to a point where you ignore that child, and then the tantrum stops. And I think that's what we have to do with him.
Right. That's called rewarding negative behavior. I think that's what we call that.
Mm-hmm.
And he has gotten a lot of rewards out of negative behavior.
Yes.
I never thought about, Jamesetta, what you said about if he is mentally unstable, it gives other people permission to be mentally unstable. I mean, I certainly, you know, mocking injured veterans and, well, all the racism and Islamophobia and homophobia and anti-Semitism and all the rest of that. I think that he has definitely given permission for people who perhaps had those thoughts, maybe even felt guilty about those thoughts, but he has certainly given permission for other people to behave that way. And there's been a tremendous resurgence of hatred in so many forms in our country, which is the most painful thing. I keep trying to believe that the arc bends always toward justice, but I feel like, it's been bending that way. And then we hit a little, we've definitely hit a snag. But the idea that it gives permission for other people to, I don't know, I have to think about that one, but that was a very interesting insight. I appreciate that.
Well, I think Gaylia touches on what you were saying too, in the sense of or maybe it was Sally, the people believe that he is one of them, that he speaks for them, and that he's obviously, we would say he could care less for the hoi polloi, to use that terminology, if I may. But at least that's the impression given, and that's what's make people feel good. That does, okay, if he can do it, then I can do it.
Right.
But he didn't do it.
Well, but but I mean, some of the things, well, he does do. I mean, his comments about racism, sexism against, the women, whatever like that. Then people say that if the president can do that, I mean, he's one of our great leaders,
Right.
No, that's only in their imagination. But anyway, I think that's part of it as well. I think it's well said that he does call forth from the individuals who maybe are having difficulties adjusting to the demands and requirements and the responsibilities of society to kind of go a little askew on that, because he does that. And after all, he's the president. So.
Right.
Yeah, let's go back to the 50s when the president was respected. I'm only joking, but the president was respected for a reason. Can you imagine a U.S. president saying negative things about people of color, immigrants, women?
Well, in our history, we did have some of those individuals, unfortunately. To the point of 1950s, I'm always want to say when some of the younger clergy or older clergy or the clergy or just the folks we serve say, we need to go back to the way it was, and I said, well, the 1950s, the good old days were good, number one, because we survived them. And number two, we didn't know any difference. That's the problem. And if anybody wants to go back to the 1950s, remember what was not present for us in the 1950s. That should stop a person immediately saying, want to go back to the 1950s. They see a certain security that they thought they saw in the 50s, but we were just as insecure then. We just did not have the information, the media presence, 24-hour presence that we have now that enlightens us in that regard. So.
All right, panel, we're off to a good start, and I want to keep moving along. I want to get to our second topic. There's a lot of things I want to hear your opinion about today. Twitter is in flux after being acquired by Elon Musk. Among the latest troubles, a verified Twitter account posing as the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly tweeted this, quote, "We are excited to announce that insulin is now free," end of quote. As you might expect, this post sparked an uproar. Turning to our panel, big question, should we trust social media?
Should we ever have trusted getting our news from social media?
I would say we should always have a hermeneutic of suspicion, as they say, the theologians say. We should always question. But it goes to the point, though, John, I think, and folks, that he or she who controls the information is the winner. I mean, it's a war of communication. Now, look at even what's happening in Ukraine. Yes, the missiles and the bombs and all that, but still the great war, the battles being fought in the media type thing from both sides. I think, we have to be it's something we need, but at the same time, the need needs to be questioned. With Michael.
I just thought it was really sad. Can you imagine if you had diabetes and Eli Lilly came out with a statement and said, insulin's going to be free? My heart goes out to them. Not so much for Jeff Bezos, who, for Elon Musk, I'm confusing my billionaires here. The idea that you can buy authenticity, for $8 a month. And he thinks that one of the reasons that will work is because if you get suspended, you don't get your $8 back. I don't know. What kind of a billionaire has that kind of a business plan? I mean, is Eli Lilly going to drop hundreds of thousands of dollars on their ad campaigns on Twitter anymore when they see that it can be abused like that? Yesterday, R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon was trending, and there was this whole uproar that they thought Jimmy had died. Because it came from a theoretically, authorized Jimmy Fallon account. I mean, and there have been others that I'm sure everybody's been reading about them. It's just, I don't know. I don't participate in social media, so I'm probably not a good one to comment on this, but there's a lot better things that could be done with one's money.
What was the statement someone made? If you have YouTube and Facebook and Twitter account, you should be called as you twit face.
Yes, I love that. Yep, you twit face.
Well, going back to that which was put out on Twitter, what's the expression? That which is too good to be true usually isn't. And to think that, insulin that has cost so much all of a sudden is going to be free. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a problem with that because I do feel for those people. I know people who have had to continue working because of the cost of insulin that they've had to pay.
Right. And
now, of course, hopefully it's going to be a $35 cap. But insulin has been so very expensive. And it was cruel to do that to the people who bought that tweet and went into that tweet. I don't know who pays for that. I mean, is Eli Lilly going to pay for that? Is Musk going to pay for that? Does anybody?
Pay for what?
They just lose if they signed onto that tweet to get that.
I'm sure the court will decide on that one.
Well,
and the court will decide on that one. I mean, if anybody's going to pay for that, because obviously they're not going to get their product.
all right.
So, or their insulin, so that's not going to work. But it's
as reckless as Musk has been in all of his ventures, I don't understand why we think that Twitter would end up any different. He has been reckless all along, and for us to put value in him transforming Twitter into a viable media site, I think is just speaks to our craziness in wanting to believe that he can make it better. And so as far as the people who have believed regarding what the Lilly site, I guess the Lilly Twitter site has said, they're just gullible. They're gullible because they need to believe that somebody cares or a company cares enough to make a difference in their life.
I also think it goes to another problem that we put such high regard on those people who are able to make that much money.
Yeah, we do. We think the more money you make, the more honorable you should be, right? Right.
And the more you should put confidence in their abilities. But their abilities seem to be their abilities for themselves.
Right.
Oh,
isn't that
really?
the American dream? The more money you make, the better you are, the more valuable you are.
So I think that's a moral issue.
Yeah,
it is. Twitter has always been a moral issue. The anonymity that people can have to say such hateful things, and I shouldn't just say Twitter. I guess it's most of social media, and people get their news from that now. And like you said, I mean, they believe it. And I think it's one of the great ills of the modern society.
Okay, let's segue into our next topic, talking about people with money. Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder, said he will give away the majority of his fortune during his lifetime, becoming the latest billionaire to make such a pledge. Forbes magazine estimates his worth at more than $124 billion. So, panel, your thoughts on Jeff Bezos?
I would like to see a time schedule, for the giving away of the money. I can just see on the deathbed saying, okay, now give away my money. If he's going to, I appreciate the thought, but I'd like to see the execution of the thought before, giving up apologues or whatever. But with the individual of that much money, whatever like that, a few billion here, who is the famous financial guy said a few billion here, a few billion there, pretty soon you're talking about real money type thing, But if he gave away a lot of his money just with a time frame, I mean, even some of the other fellows had a time frame that they would give away the money for. So I'd like to see something of that nature to firm up his statement that he's going to give away some of the money and see who does he give it to type thing.
Right.
But at least he's talking about giving it away. That's more than we can say about Elon Musk. He's not talking about giving anything away.
Well, I was going to say, is he giving it to Elon Musk? I mean, that's
He's going to lose it all on Twitter. But
Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, they had that call to the super wealthy to make a difference in the world. And I'll tell you, Bill and Melinda Gates, I mean, they've done some amazing things. They've virtually eradicated malaria in Africa. And I mean, they've done some wonderful things. The power for good behind all that money is immense. The power for ill is also immense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere, I don't know which one it was, that was going to give Dolly Parton.
Yeah,
They did. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that.
It's like $100 million or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton Foundation or whatever. And part of what we read, I think, was how hard it is for Bezos to try and figure out to whom to give the money.
Right.
I mean, it's not an easy thing. And, I keep going back to my uncle who researched before he died, where he wanted his money to go here locally.
Oh,
And
Crusade for Children.
He chose the Crusade, absolutely. Because he looked at, how money is distributed with the Crusade, and he saw that as an open record and said, that's where I want the donations to go. So my hope is that Bezos will do the same thing and pay attention to where the money is going to be going.
Mm-hmm.
And to whom.
There are very few organizations that have the record of righteousness that Crusade for Children has of, I won't make this into a commercial for Crusade, but I'd like to.
You can. And I will say right here, we can tell Mr. Bezos he can watch this show on YouTube anytime and learn about it.
Sally, you should write him personally and tell him about your uncle's research.
There you go. There are organizations that I support a number of charities, whether locally and otherwhere, but I will go online. There are a number of websites that are not political in any way, but they will tell you that if you punch in the name of the organization you'd like to donate to, they will give you anything that they know about that organization. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I always like is, what is the return administrative cost of the dollar? I think last I heard it was up to 18 cents a dollar, and that was considered a good donation.
Good one, right? Because there are some between what they do in PR and paying the salaries and all the rest of that, none of which Crusade for Children does.
Exactly. I mean, but there are some out there, Gaylia, that have less than $1 or so.
I know it. It's incredible. Charity Navigator is one of the.
Right.
I mean, they don't have all the charities that I give to, but that's one of the places where I look.
All right, we're going to finish up a little bit here today with a kind of a neat local story. A photographer who's had a rich career is retiring. Courier Journal photographer Pat McDonough has shaken hands with the Dalai Lama, photographed 6 U.S. presidents, as well as the King and Queen of England during his 45 years behind the lens. Panel, Pat McDonough has brought the world literally to our doorsteps. Your thoughts on that?
It's an attaboy. Anything that can contribute towards the understanding our humanness and also where a photograph, as they say, can speak 1,000 words or more. And what he has done, I think, with some of the photographs is just amazing. So I would applaud him for sure on that. So
Oh, absolutely. I would too. I was wondering if the moral side of this issue was, I read that he was accepting a buyout. And that's what's happening to the Courier-Journal and other news sources as they cut back, as they run furloughs, as they, and I understand, especially print media is not doing well, but
challenge, right?
It's a big challenge, but it's so important. We were just talking about how all these people get their news from social media and places that are not held to any kind of standard or integrity. So I think we're losing more than just his pictures.
Yeah.
Right. And it's expensive anymore just to take the daily paper. It's not cheap.
Right.
6 months is $350 or so. But I'm wondering, is he the one that did the stories on Vietnam so that when you go into Vietnam, it's his photographs that are seen on display from the Courier-Journal? I know there's Father Joe Graffis has talked about that, and I'm not sure he's the same one, but that speaks to what's going on in our culture in ways that instantly we can see and take that in and ingest what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I did look at the pictures that you sent to us, and beautiful pictures, and they really tell a wonderful story. And so, I celebrate the work that he's done for all of these years, and I hope that the photographs are maybe put up somewhere at the Fraser Museum or some other local place that will be able to share the stories that are being told through those photographs.
His work has shown life at its most challenging and painful and difficult, with storms and devastation and murder and mayhem, and also at its highest. I mean, he has really lived the gamut. And I think as we're coming into Thanksgiving, it's a good thing to look over the highs and the lows and to be grateful for everything that we have, including this wonderful photographer.
Excellent way to end our program. We're out of time on this edition of Moral Side of the News. Happy Thanksgiving to Jamesetta, Ferguson, Sally McClain, Gaylia, Rooks, and Tony Smith. We hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, and enjoys some time with family and friends and just being together. Thanks for watching and listening to Moral Side of the News. You can catch this again on YouTube anytime. Until next time, thank you, panel, and have a great week. It's never too early to make a tax-deductible year-end donation to the WHAS Crusade for Children. See the many ways you can donate at WHAScrusade.org. That's WHAScrusade.org. Or mail your donation to WHAS Crusade for Children, 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. Wishing you and yours happy holidays from the WHAS Crusade for Children.